welcome to this presentation on Artesca plus Veeam Unified Software Appliance. So my name is Rob Orton, I'm in technical marketing here at Scality, and I'm joined by Rick Vanover, the VP of Product Strategy at Veeam. So we're really excited today to talk to you about Artesca plus Veeam Unified Software Appliance and the fact that it's now GA and readily available. So today we'll talk about the backup landscape. So Rick will talk about things like data resilience for all workloads, the importance of immutable object storage and SOSAPI and various integrations between the two products. Then I'll carry on and give you a technical deep dive into things like the general architecture, solution benefits, sizing, and summary information about the Artesca plus Veeam appliance. So over to you, Rick.
Well, hey, Rob, thank you so much for having me back here with the Scality team, and really excited to talk to you about the landscape. So first thing I'd like to do is just give you a brief introduction of Veeam, that we are purpose-built to provide data resilience in this market. And make no mistake, we cannot do that without what I call ultra-resilient storage. The best example in the market today is immutable storage. People come to us for backup, make no mistake about that. But the threats on their data today, the landscape, they fall in love with us for data recovery. And then having data portability, data security, and data intelligence in the age of AI and the threats of ransomware and some of the current conditions to move workloads around, Veeam is well positioned for today's conditions. So we've come from, I'm in my 15th year here at Veeam. I used to take time to make sure people know how to pronounce Veeam, but now we're the largest provider of backup solutions in the world. It's awesome. So let's go to the next slide. And let me kind of show you where we are today with our platform. There are two very different elements of our portfolio. The first is what brought us into market, Veeam Data Platform. So, in 2008, I think it was, we entered the market with virtual machine backup, and today there are 7 or so different hypervisors supported, and we just announced yet another one with HPE VM Essentials coming down the way. So we're so much more than just virtual machine backup. And we can also look at different estates of the data center, physical systems, enterprise apps, unstructured data, and more. But all those data sources need an ultra-resilient place to go. That is really the heart of what we're going to talk about here today. If you go to the next slide, Rob, we'll see that this single platform really is all about consolidating, standardizing the protections. One of the things I consistently see is that organizations don't always have the same level of protection across their different workloads. They might take tier 1 databases or the headquarters, IT, clusters, and data center protected at a very high level. But what are we doing at the edge? What are we doing with some of the other different workloads? I think the organizations out there today have a great opportunity to be more consistent with a resiliency strategy. And again, the most effective way to do that is with a backup copy on object storage. So that's the set of the context here, but let me take a little bit of a specific view of object storage, what we've done with our friends over at Scality, as well as how Veeam has implemented object storage. So when I look at, let's just take 3 scenarios for object storage. Make no mistake, object storage is a first-class citizen when it comes to backup data being stored, written by Veeam. And we're unapologetically a software company. We love what we've done in the market with our storage partners, but also some of the additional innovations, which I'll talk about here in a second. But what I want to highlight are 3 scenarios. One, taking backups and putting them on the Artesca Plus device. This is really an easy play based on the technology called direct-to-object storage that we had come out a few years ago. In fact, Rob and I did a test where I was sending backups from myself here in Ohio to his hosted Artesca in, I think it was Sweden or another part of Europe, over the ocean. And guess what, friends? It just worked. This capability is ready for any type of scenario. And, whether it's your first backup, which is scenario 1, the first copy going to Artesca, or scenario 2, a backup copy job, if you think about consolidating multiple sites. Now, the first thing I'll tell you about a backup copy job is that it is not a copy of your backup. A backup copy job builds restore points from a source being another backup file, versus a backup job, scenario 1, builds restore points from the source being production workloads. It took me 15 years at Veeam to get that story right. But then there's number 3, the scale out backup repository. That scenario can put backups on Artesca by having a data lifecycle. So you might have a little bit of a mix and match on premises of Frankenstein of some of your storages, but for what we call the capacity tier, you can put those into Artesca as well with an advanced lifecycle engine that has, of course, immutability, aging out, and some awareness about other elements getting full. It's really smart stuff. Now, speaking of smart, let's go to the last slide here on the Veeam specific thing here I want to talk about. And this is really important because Scality is a level above all the other storage partners that are out there. The Smart Object Storage API is a really advanced element. I'll be the first to say, I didn't even have a slide on it. I had to go look this up. But because Scality is one of the few that have really integrated with this, and this comes from our product teams working together, good field teams, and further, Scality has been an early adopter of some of this technology. There's a lot of low-level enhancements like node awareness and keeping blocks or pages, objects together on the storage system that makes the overall use case of Veeam backup data on object storage really smart. And guess what? We call it the Smart Object Storage API. Now, not only does Veeam carry the Veeam Ready object with immutability qualification, it also supports the Smart Object Storage API. So when you're thinking about what are some of the difference makers that you can have when you decide where you put your backup storage, this is something to definitely consider. Now, the one thing I'll say is that in the end, it's based on the S3 compatible type standard that is very prevalent through the object storage world. But having these additional smart attributes that we can engage with can truly make a difference. So, Rob, I think that, when we look at the market and the opportunity to keep these data points safe, something I forgot to say, but it was on the slide before, is that when you think about object storage and you think about immutable backups and you think about the threats out there, I think it's super important to note to everyone that with over 500,000 customers, Veeam does not have a support case on record for a scenario that when a customer has backup data in an immutable target and they have their encryption password, that we do not have a case of being unable to recover data in that situation. And I think that's super powerful when you think about the threats and then the ease of use of how, by the math, how safe that is. I think it really fits some of the conditions here today.
Yeah, perfect. So thanks, Rick. So it's obvious that companies using Veeam and object storage like Artesca have sort of guaranteed ransomware-proof backups, if that's what you're saying about the support cases.
Well, I have yet to be proven wrong about it. The fact that when the customers are doing this, which is what they should do, our customers have been trained on this, our sales team, our partners, our implementation employees and partners in the markets around the world, everyone knows we need at least one copy of immutable data, and go for two, might as well, one off site as well, and that is kind of the expectation today. I can tell you that if you're of the mindset that two immutable copies is something that is a palatable architecture for your organization, that has, by the math, by the numbers, a very high likelihood of being able to drive data recovery in a ransomware incident. And that's honestly where we need to be today.
Okay, thanks, Rick. That was super interesting. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Artesca in numbers. So Artesca's been available and in the market for about 4 years now. And over that time, we've sold 250 petabytes worth of capacity. Interestingly, that 250 petabytes sits on about 1,000 servers. And out of those 1,000 servers, half of those, so 50%, have been to support a single server implementation. Now, like Veeam, Artesca and Scality is a software company, but we've managed to get Artesca certified on about 30 different hardware vendors' storage servers. So that kind of makes us truly agnostic, really. There's a lot of servers that we support. The great news for our partner and channel community is we've got over 150 people certified to deliver Artesca. And we've got well over 1,000 SEs certified on our SCA program. So the SCA program is a quarterly program that we run that allows SEs in the partner community to be able to size, configure, talk about Artesca, and also make sure that their customers get the most suitable solution. By far, I think the most interesting figure on this screen is 80% Veeam usage. So out of all that capacity we've sold, so 250 petas, 200 of that has been to support a Veeam workload. Now that Veeam workload has been across Kasten, VBR, and M365, but the bulk of it, the most of that has been across Veeam Backup and Replication. So I just want to take a few minutes now to demonstrate a typical architecture between Veeam and Artesca. So in this instance, we're looking at backing up a virtualized environment, and that backup is going to get sent to Veeam. Now Veeam is obviously made up of a few different services. So we've got the VBR server, the proxy, and the gateway. And that's going to send data across the wire, across the network to Artesca. Now, Artesca is actually built on a hardened and dedicated operating system. So there's some benefits to this, which I'll touch on later, but think of it as really security orientated. So we've got our core 5 security descriptor at 5 different levels. On top of that hardened operating system, we run Kubernetes. We've got a dedicated version of Kubernetes, a storage-focused version, that we then run Artesca microservices on top of. And this just enables us to be like really agile in the development of Artesca. And obviously within that stack at the moment, Veeam 12 runs on a Windows operating system. So actually about a year ago, both of our companies at the CPO level thought it would be really great if we could try and focus both of these individual pieces of software into a dedicated appliance. So the way we thought about doing that is by extending the Artesca Secure OS with its Kubernetes to encapsulate the Veeam and the Artesca workloads. And the way we do this, the secret sauce, is by using a very popular CNCF approved or popular CNCF type of hypervisor called KubeVirt. So KubeVirt allows Windows to sit on top of that, which allows Veeam to sit on top of that. So think of this entire solution, this entire box as being encapsulated and being a unified software appliance. So exactly as it says on the tin. So Veeam and Artesca are running as one in one single appliance. Now, obviously, when Veeam 13 comes out and prospects have the option to do this, they don't necessarily have to run Windows at that point. So you could run the VBR services directly on top of the hypervisor without having to worry about a Windows installation in there as well. So what is Artesca plus Veeam Unified Software Appliance? So like I said, it runs VBR and Artesca on the same hardware. It's a software appliance, so that means that all software comes included. So that operating system, that Kubernetes stack that we saw, all of the Artesca smarts and the hypervisor all come managed and updated by Scality as part of the software lifecycle of that. It's deployed as a single image, which makes it really easy to deploy. So our partners actually deploy and integrate this with Veeam either at their site or at the customer site, but it makes for a really, really simple installation. It's hosted on one single piece of hardware, and at the moment it's a single server. So maybe down the line we'll looking at multiple servers with HA built in, and I know there's some features in Veeam 13 that's going to allow that. So let's wait and see. But for now, at launch, this product is single server. It's available for source data from 10 terabytes all the way up to 240 terabytes. So essentially, it's aimed at the small, medium businesses or enterprises with a lot of edge backup that they want sort of distinct deployments for. So some of the cost benefits, as you can imagine, taking 2 pieces of hardware and allowing 2 services to run on just one single piece gives us reduced costs. So you don't need to buy 2 servers, just buy one. That's a reduced acquisition cost. And in turn, that's going to reduce things like the support costs and the running costs. Like I said, it's a software appliance, so you can run this on any hardware that you choose. Benefits of this is you might have a really good deal with a certain hardware vendor or your usual vendor. It also makes it easier for you as a company to support and run and deploy that. We are not a mysterious black box appliance which is going to cause your support team issues. We're going to run on hardware that you know and that you love. The good thing about Artesca Plus as well is at the smaller end, so the sub 20 terabytes of source data, we have the ability to run on towers. So we have 4-disk entry-level products. So this means that you don't even have to put that in a proper data center, in a cooled room. This could run somewhere in the switch cupboard or somewhere that's not in a traditional data center. So this is really good for small customers that may not have that infrastructure in place or that are particularly price sensitive. Like I said, both of the companies have worked on this at the CPO level, so this has been driven by product officers at both companies. The engineering teams have worked together on this, and it's a tested solution, so obviously it carries the Veeam Ready logos. Because this is dedicated hardware, it's performance. It's got known performance baseline, so we're not running Veeam in your ESX environment. We're not running the backup storage software in the ESX environment. It's out of your production environment. It's on its own dedicated piece of hardware, which, because it's hardware, it has a guaranteed, a very predictable performance level. And also backup integrity, so we can run Sure Backup in it's self-sufficient to manage and run integrity checks, again, away from the production environment. So you can have confidence that the data that is backed up is going to perform well, and it's going to be giving you a great restore point. Let's briefly talk about sizing. So there's a bunch of different options for this. We've created sizing based on a number of assumptions, and it's important to understand those assumptions. So you can always test these out in the standard Veeam sizing tool. It's a 5-year forecast with 14 days retention, and those 14 days are for immutability as well. So 14 days retention, of which is all immutable. We've assumed a 5% daily change rate and a 5% annual growth rate as well, with a 2-to-1 projected data reduction. So the entry-level points, so for source data of 10 and 20 terabytes, this is the tower option that I mentioned earlier on. So these are 4 drive configs that just sit on standard industry tower servers, so not necessarily in your data center environment as well. Then we move on to the 12 disk option. So we can have 12 disks that either use 8, 12, 16, or 24 terabyte drives. And these provide different repository sizes. So, 73, 110, 150 approximately, and 220 size of the repository, which equates to between 40 and 100 terabytes of source data. And finally, for the larger end of the market as well, we've got the 24 large form factor disk environment. So again, it's a 2U rack. You can start at 12 disks, and you can actually expand from, by a single disk at a time, from 12 all the way up to 24. So if you're using 24 terabyte drives, you can grow your backup repository from 220 all the way up to 440 terabytes, which equates to 120 to 240 terabytes of source data. We can see on this table as well, we've got the quantity of VMs that each of these installations support, ranges from 40 all the way through to nearly 1,000, so 960 VMs supported. So we can see that with the Alteska plus Veeam unified software appliance, we can hit quite small capacities, and we can allow companies to grow that backup infrastructure all the way through to 240 terabytes of source data. So some further technical benefits. So security. So because this is all baked into a single piece of hardware, we don't have to send data over the network between Veeam and Alteska, between the storage. So this gives security improvements along the way of, we're not sharing S3 endpoints or credentials external to the box. All communication between these two pieces of software is private, and it's internal. It never hits the public network. So we're not going to be susceptible to things like a DNS attack, or there's going to be no sort of DDoS on that S3 endpoint. Alteska design principles say it's zero trust design. So like I said, it's baked onto this Alteska hardened operating system. We can even use Alteska IAM with MFA to grant or deny access to the Windows element that supports the VBR. So all in all, we think that by hosting both Veeam and Alteska on the same piece of hardware, it's going to drive security improvements. There's also an ease of use factor. So we've got integrated monitoring. I'll show you that shortly. So it's a single pane of glass that displays both Alteska and Veeam metrics in the Alteska UI. Rick mentioned SOSAPIT earlier on. So since version 12 of Veeam, Alteska has supported it. We were there at the launch, and this enables storage metrics, so things like capacity utilization, to be displayed directly within the Veeam UI. So you can still access the Veeam UI in this solution, and you can access the Alteska UI as well. And both of them are going to reflect metrics about the other piece of software as well. So it's going to be easy to monitor. There's a piece of software called the Veeam Assistant, which is actually in all flavors of Alteska. And again, this is part of the integration, the drive of ease of use of using Veeam with Alteska. So basically, the Veeam Assistant allows a super fast setup. So you answer a few questions, 4 or 5 questions, and then it basically gives you all of the credentials to feed into Veeam. So, things like access keys, secret keys, like creating a bucket and a repository on the Artesca software, so that you can then very easily just get that into Veeam and get up and running really quickly. Also, Artesca is simple to use. It's always point and click. It's always UI driven. It's very descriptive. The UI is really user friendly, and it displays everything that you need to know. Part of the Artesca plus Veeam unified software appliance is the upgrades as well. So we have a super easy software upgrade process that's UI driven. And I mentioned it earlier on as part of the software appliance. When we upgrade the OS, we upgrade the Kubernetes, we upgrade all the Artesca software as well. So you get all that factored in, as well as the virtualization engine as well. So we manage all that upgrade progress, again, just to take any management headache or overview out of the end user and just pop it into the unified software appliance. And of course, another benefit is you only have to manage one server. So if there's some firmware things that you need to do, you just have to do it and apply it to one server rather than two or more. So in terms of user experience, here is the UI that I mentioned earlier on. So this is coming up in the product. We can see that there's some Veeam elements, there's some traditional Artesca elements, and we've got a nice little list here. So we can see traditional things that we have in the Artesca UI at the moment, things like the platform overview. So how's the hardware doing? How are the volumes doing? Are there any errors? We can view total used data, and we can get projected capacity trends. So if we're using data more quickly, we can see that and we can do something about it as well. And general Artesca performance. So as long as that, we actually interrogate the VBR API, and we can pull back Veeam metrics from the Veeam installation as well. So things like repository jobs, backup storage details, sure backup validation, backup windows, whether they're being met or not, job types. So we can pull those into the Artesca Plus UI and have that available in this single interface as well. And we can put all those things together as well. So we can put the Artesca metrics together with the Veeam metrics, and we can start predicting usable capacity of the solution, and have a nice little list of things like backup jobs and default resources that are all available here. So Rick, I just wanted to hook into something you said earlier on, and that was about the fact that having 2 immutable copies of data is absolutely rock solid, and it's the golden standard. And that obviously fits in with the Veeam 3211 rule. Now that rule sort of demands that we have an offsite copy of data as well. And inside Artesca plus Veeam, just remember it's a standard installation of Veeam. So of course, Veeam supports offsite copy jobs. So does the Artesca plus Veeam unified software appliance. So this means that you can have your on-site, on-premise backup stored within Artesca plus Veeam, and you can also create an offsite copy of that either to Veeam Cloud Data Vault or to an MSP offering. Now, of course, at Scality, we have 2 different products. We have Artesca and we have Ring. So either of those are suitable for managed service providers to provide end user customers with an offsite S3 capacity repository that they can safely store their copy jobs on. So the important thing is that with Artesca plus Veeam, customers can meet the 3211 rule. So benefits to the partner. Actually, the unified software appliance needs a little bit of integration by the partner. So Scality provides the operating system, the Kubernetes, the virtualization engine to host Veeam on, and all the Artesca smarts. But what we don't supply, obviously, is the Veeam software. So the partner then has to install that Veeam software in. It's super easy. Scality have got tooling. It's basically like a few commands that you run, and it installs that Veeam appliance in that Veeam software inside the appliance. The benefits of this are, you might be porting across an existing Veeam installation or licensing. So we don't provide the licensing or the software for Veeam that's in there. It's kind of managed by the partner and integrated either on the partner site or on the customer site. Obviously, like I mentioned, this is a software-defined storage, so this can go on your hardware of choice. If you're a partner that's got an alliance with a hardware vendor, you only deal with one hardware vendor, then that's great. You can use that hardware vendor's servers, and you can deliver an appliance out that way. Or it might be your customer's choice. You might not care about the hardware vendor, but your customer might have a strong preference. So again, you can choose the dedicated hardware that you want to run that on. Another benefit of this is there's the new Scality SCSP program, so Scality Cloud Service Provider program. The point of this is it's a pay-as-you-go model, and it's designed to match exactly Veeam's VCSP model. So if you're a partner that's also a VCSP or an MSP of some sort, and you want to align those two programs together, which makes sense if you're delivering both Veeam and the storage for Veeam in a managed service, then you want those two licensing models to align. And this is what we've done. We've matched the SCSP with the VCSP model, just making life easier for partners and managed service providers. Also, there's a nice little Artesca sizing tool on the partner portal, and of course, delivery and support training is available. So I've got a little bit more further information available. So who is selling this appliance and when is it available? So channel partners. So ideally channel partners with a Scality and a Veeam relationship. They're ideally positioned to be able to sell this product now. And when is it available? Well, it's available right now. This is a GA announcement. I'm letting you know that this product is available and shipping. So if you're interested, contact your local channel partner and we can move on from that point. Who installs it? So the channel partner installs. I've already mentioned that Scality provide a really easy to install image with all of the software apart from Veeam and Windows in there. The channel partner then uses Scality tooling, which is super easy to flash Windows and Veeam, or just Veeam when it's VBR13, into that instance of the appliance. Who supports it? So level 1 support comes from either the channel partners or Scality. Any deeper levels of support come from the Scality team. If it's obviously a Veeam issue, then feel free to contact Veeam support and move through those processes. But what's important to understand as well is because Artesca has been in the field for 4 years, and I've mentioned that Veeam is the bulk of the applications that we support, our support team is very well versed on dealing with Veeam queries and Veeam issues. There's a lot of links behind the scenes between the two support teams. We're never going to leave you in the lurch. We're always going to make sure that any issues are filed through and seen through to the end and fixed and resolved in the best possible manner. Licensing, so Artesca is licensed by Usable Terabyte. Veeam licensing is as normal, so this is why we involve the channel. This is why channel partners have that relationship with you and with Veeam to be able to advise and procure the best Veeam licensing for you. And I've already mentioned that VCSP and SCSP models are very well aligned, making a pay-as-you-go model available and friendly for MSP type of organizations. The target solution is anyone with 40 to 960 VMs or 10 to 240 terabytes of source data that you want backing up. So that's equivalent to SMB type of organizations or large enterprises with lots of edge backup requirements. And of course, because of our licensing and our channel-friendly mantra, managed service providers and Veeam cloud service providers can create a lot of product or a lot of usage out of Artesca plus Veeam. So in summary, Artesca plus Veeam unified software appliance, it's new, and it's the only combined VBR and secure object storage on the market. So it's the only product that's going to allow you to combine Veeam and secure object storage in the same hardware platform, delivering all these cost, security, and ease of use benefits that I've already talked about. It's ideal for SMB or enterprise edge customers. It's exceptionally partner friendly, and it's integrated by our partners. So we rely on our partners a lot, and we spend a lot of time educating and working with our partners in all of the regions. If you want to find out more information, please check out the Scality YouTube channel. We've got a whiteboard overview discussion on there. Or if you're a channel partner, feel free to log on to the Scality partner portal. On there, you can find links to the online sizer. You can see links to the preview. So if you want to download and play with Artesca Plus, you can do that. And also there's a partner version of that video, also giving a bit more information around how the partner integrates. So finally, I'll just ask you to give the Artesca microsite a little look. If you're on there, you can find some data sheets, you can find the white papers, you can discover more information, you can even locate a local partner that has been trained on this. You can even use the Q&A feature on the website if you have any more questions, or indeed if you want to get in contact with Scality directly. Okay, so that draws everything to a close. Thank you very much, Rick, for your time and your input earlier on. That this presentation to a close. Thank you.